Hello, beloved Earthbound fam. It's another busy day in the above. Raining down here, raining energies galore to us down here below. Because around 7:15 p.m. Central Standard Time last night, July 30th, 2026, the nodes of fate moved into the zero or void degrees of the houses they will be occupying for the next 18 months. South node moved into the void between Virgo and Leo, and North Node moved into the void between Pisces and Aquarius, giving us the rocket thrusting boosters into the age of Aquarius. We are here, and there's no going back. This shift is a universal movement, and we are all along for the ride into the new paradigm of life here on Earth plane, whether we're aware of it or not. But you are, because you're here with me, listening to this. No matter for the rest, because it will become incredibly apparent to all of us very soon, and we will have to adapt. Swim or sink is on the horizon for us all, my friends. And I don't mean this as a scare tactic, so please, please, please reel this message in or release it freely if it doesn't match your resonance. I truly get it. I'm simply relaying information that we can all keep in the back of our minds, if you want to, as we meander through this new territory of the Wheel of Ages, a place humankind and our universe itself has not been in for over 25 plus millennia. For the last few of those millennia, we have been living under the energetics of North Node in Aries and Pisces, masculine energetics being in the forefront, and South Node in Libras and Virgos, feminine energetics being in the background of our human existence. But today, with the shifts of the nodes of fate, we are transferring into an archetypal shift that brings the feminine energetics to the forefront and the masculine energetics to the background of our human existence, tearing out what was disturbing the balance of life on Earth plane and restoring the equilibrium that was pushed out and forgotten about throughout the passages of time. It's important to understand here that when I say masculine and feminine, I am not talking about male and female, girls and boys, men and women, but rather the energies of these qualities that are inside of each of us, as well as in the energies that surround us here on Mama Gaia, Earth. The age of Aquarius isn't about women's lib or girl power. It's about the balance between the energies of the feminine and the energies of the masculine coming back together in harmony, which creates peace and tranquility for us all. Isn't that beautiful? Truly, y'all, what a time to be alive. To me, it is such a privilege to be here on Earth plane right now, and I really hope that you feel that as much as I do. But let's powwow more about these nodes and what's going on with them, shall we? The North Node in Aquarius. The North Node represents the collective direction in which we are moving. The House of Aquarius is a feminine energetic within the zodiacal wheel, and this is where the North Node is moving to. So, feminine rising. And they will be fully in the first degree. Sorry, North Node will be fully in the first degree of Aquarius on August 18th, just 19 days from yesterday, when it entered when it will enter. Excuse me, let me say that all over again. The House of Aquarius is a feminine energetic within the zodiacal wheel, and this is where the North Node is moving to. So, feminine energy rising. And North Node will be fully in the House of Aquarius on August 18th at its 29th degree, just 19 days from yesterday. That was kind of a mouthful. Sorry. The house of Aquarius is the elder air sign and ruled by Uranus. And this house exudes the energetics of humanitarianism, freedom, and liberty for all, inclusion, acceptance of others just as they are, and equity for all in all aspects of the word equity. Aquarius represents forward movement, major life changing scientific advancements, etheric communication, and marrying intuition and imagination with invention. Aquarius represents revolution and rebellion, disrupting and drowning traditions and customs that no longer serve us. And that can get pretty uncomfortable. But things cannot change if they stay the same. And the age of Aquarius will usher in a fantastic amount of change, my friends. Though it may seem strange elementally, Aquarius is represented by the symbolic glyph of the water bearer, even though its elemental force is air. The element of air represents the mental body of our four body systems, so emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual. So Aquarius is the eldest or most mature form of mental stamina, stability, and strength of all of the air signs. It represents what we let blow and flow around us and through us, creating a buildup of thoughts and beliefs that shape our reality in the most mature form. You can think of it like sands in a desert during a windstorm. The sands blow, flow, and shift into new territories, and some of those grains of sand just float and fall into new and open places and spaces, while others get stuck up against rocks and mountains, unable to move further than those obstacles allow them to. And you and me, we are the grains of sand that I'm talking about. And as my guides have told me, winds of change shift sands of time. And I actually have a short video on the channel from a few months ago concerning that particular phrase. I think that's even what it's called, winds of change, shift sands of time, if you're interested in checking it out. Meanwhile, we are here, blowing, flowing, and shifting, my friends, every second of every day. As the North Node gives us a chance to adjust to the incoming and brand new flow of the Aquarius air and feminine energetics, we are going to come face to face with many thoughts and beliefs that have served their time. So we can do some internal cleaning up, if you will, to create a tidy space for the next phase of our human existence, individually and collectively. Think of it like a big feast where there was a huge buffet and everyone was partaking in its bounty, indulging and enjoying, not worrying about being sloppy or wasteful or caring about crumbs that fell to the floor because there was always more to devour. It was almost like it was this unlimited source, right? Well, that fantastically false feast has come to an end, and North Node is the cleaner, sweeping up every last crumb of that huge and sloppy meal that was just devoured, and then mopping up the residues. Those crumbs that have been swept and the residues that have been mopped away are my analogy for the old training of thoughts and beliefs that were not authentically our own, but rather what we were trained into believing by our ancestors, families, and teachers, whatever forms those people took in each of our lives, according to human-made rules, laws, and regulations, rather than divine rules, laws, and regulations. Divine law doesn't really have any rules and regulations other than you governing yourself. So none of those trainings of our thought processes are going to make any sense anymore as the age of Aquarius unfolds. And this could get very confusing, frustrating, and confining, and uncomfortable if we don't allow ourselves to flow with these winds of change, because where we can't allow ourselves to explore and expand, because we're holding on tight to rigid belief systems that are no longer serving, we will inevitably develop a stagnancy in our mental body, which will hinder the health and abilities of the other three bodies: the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual. Stagnancy beckons death and decay to its door. Movement creates prosperous and thriving life and ecosystems. Let me give you an example. When we allow ourselves to let mental anguish fester, it quickly takes its toll on our emotional body. When our emotional body becomes overwhelmed, it disrupts the functions of our physical body. An example of this is if you are sad or stressed out or consistently stressed, more than likely you're not sleeping well, you're not eating well, and possibly not drinking beverages that serve your body well, right? This, in turn, depletes your energy, your immune system weakens, which causes pain to flourish and expand within the physical body, and actually the emotional body and mental body as well. When our physical body becomes weak, though, it becomes incredibly difficult to focus our attention on anything other than the pain we are feeling. The accumulation of pain from the inability to release mental and emotional anguish is a direct blockage to our spiritual growth when we can't get past the pain or the rock or the mountain. See what I'm saying? But if we can flow with the air currents instead of trying to control the outcome of where we land by overthinking, we can land in open territory. Let's move into the South Node in Leo. The South Node represents the direction in which we, as a collective, are moving away from. The House of Leo is the adult house of fire and is a major masculine archetype of our zodiacal wheel. The adult houses are where we learn to know thyself through development of our four body energies to better serve ourselves as well as those around us as we learn the ins and outs of life as they pertain to, well, adulting, for lack of a better word. In these houses, we learn to become responsible for our own actions, to speak up and speak out when we do or do not agree, to stand up for ourselves, to stand up for others, and most of all, to step out into the world on our own by learning about exactly who we are in our full authenticity, rather than floating around in the beliefs of others. Leo is ruled by Father Sun and represents, first and foremost, love in its positive traits. It represents protection of our loved ones, courage, self-confidence, and honesty. But every house and every archetype has a darker side too. Leo's symbolic glyph is the lion. And when we think of what role the masculine lion plays in the wild, we think of their hunting abilities, their vicious fighting abilities that often result in the death of their opponents. We think of their prowess, their power, their performance, overbearing protection, narcissism, vanity, loudness, pride, domination, and arrogance. While Leo's positive traits will continue to thrive, these other negative traits are the societal roles that we are now moving away from. North Node is taking the divine feminine rising energetic into the dominant seat of our collective fate, while South Node is dissolving the overbearing divine masculine energetics that we have been stuck in over the last few millennia, bringing balance back to the divine energetics here on Earth plane. The process may not be pretty, y'all, but it is required for our evolutionary growth and expansion. So just hang in there. Every little human is going to be all right. A very intriguing synchronicity that has just taken place here on Earth plane further emphasizes the rebalancing of the divine feminine and divine masculine in the metaphysical sense. Because in our physical world, Father Sun has completed his solar maximum excuse me, Father Sun has completed his solar maximum cycle and is fully into his solar minimum cycle as we speak. Please feel free to research what that is if you don't know. I'm not going to go into it here to keep this vloggy much shorter than if I went into that, it would be. So it's super interesting stuff, though, and I really urge you to check it out and to research it for yourself. Solar maximums, solar minimums, the cycles of the sun. Not only that, but on June 21st, at the summer solstice, the solar cycle of our year turned over to the lunar cycle rising, which is ruled by Mama Moon, the second most divine feminine energetic we are exposed to here on Earth plane. The first is Mama Gaia, of course, but I'm sure you knew that. The shift in these cycles is not by chance, friends. This is the divine plan of our Mother, Father, God taking form in real time. What a time to be alive. I know I say it all the time, but I mean, for real. I know this may sound extreme to some, and I often get mistaken for being a doomsdayer, but that is not my intention, nor my true demeanor at all. In fact, just the other day, I had someone tell me they've never known anyone who has my enthusiastic, optimistic outlook before, which is a great compliment. It was such a great compliment. But she followed that comment up with, I wish I could see things that way, but I'm a realist. To which I replied, reality can be optimistic if you allow it to be. Actually, that seemed to confuse her a little because no one has ever told her that before. But this is actually what I'm talking about when it comes to rigid beliefs and thoughts. If we can't open our minds up to other possibilities of greatness, we are dooming ourselves to a world whose crumbs are being swept up and mopped away. That world has become stagnant, and as mentioned, stagnancy invites death. I'm not saying anyone's going to die, but it may be possible that some of our human forms find their end if we don't open up to the flows of divine feminine energetics that are now sweeping over us, slowly but surely, erasing the deviousness and deception that was created under the divine masculine's rule. As I explained earlier, we have been under the rule of masculine Piscean energy for the last few thousand years. And Pisces is all about deception and nefarious foolings that create optical illusions or disrupted vision that covers up what truly is and its more negative aspect. This masculine-driven tomfoolery and fuckery with our minds is over now. But there will be many who are so addicted to their training of thought that they will not be able to go with the flow of the elder air, the highest forms of mental and mature energetics, which involves complete inclusion and acceptance that we are now in the process of receiving. Let me emphasize here that the word addiction is just another word for patterns that we get stuck in or caught in. Patterns are very different from cycles, which is what we are collectively experiencing through the shifts taking place in the age of Aquarius. The difference between patterns and cycles is this. Cycles are the organic flow of changing processes and arrangements concerning time, seasons, and elements. Patterns, on the other hand, are human-made matrices that create a web of perpetual and repeating behaviors. Patterns develop in response to our ability to accept and allow the changing of cycles, or the lack of being able to accept and allow the changing of cycles. We each have the gift of free will here on Earth plane. So, whatever patterns of thoughts and beliefs the people around us allow to become stagnant in their mentalities is their own choice. We cannot control other people's thoughts or beliefs or outlooks on life. So we're going to have to become strong enough to allow others to do them without dumping, without dumping our opinions on them, and instead offer our respect for their own free will, because the nodes of fate are our celestial compasses to our own individual destinies. The age of Aquarius's renewing waters are pouring down upon us, washing away the old paradigms of control. Saturn, the planet that actually rules control, has gone retrograde, and therefore, any control of just about anything other than ourselves is completely out of our hands. Even those who feel they need to hold on to old traditions and customs that we've been living in will eventually find their way into the new paradigm that is blooming. It truly cannot be any other way. Inevitably, all paths lead to the same destination. Some paths are just rougher than others, but they don't have to be. It all comes down to free will. The next 19 days is a crucial time as the nodes of fate sit in their respective voids. I discussed this in another vloggy, but the numerology of the number 19 is important because the number 19 in numerology reduces to a number 1, because 1 plus 9 equals 10 and 1 plus 0 equals 1. The number 1 is the beginning of everything new. Therefore, the next 19 days is like the cocoonish incubation time of adjustment and metamorphosis before the collective Gaian rebirth, when the Aquarian water bearer pours down the fresh divine waters of renewal over all of Earth plane on August 18th, flushing away the old paradigmal thought processes and preparing Gaia's collective for an entire rebirth into the fertile ground of divine feminine energetics. With Saturn in retrograde, his lack of controlling vibration and frequency beckons us to take this time to really go into some personal retrospection, reassessing where our minds are when it comes to how rigid or how fluid our thoughts are about the perceived realities around us. Reality is meant to be malleable and shaped, but we forgot about that when we were trained into others' thought patterns. Some reassessments to consider as the new paradigm unfolds might be, number 1, are we open to people, places, and things coming into versions of their life paths that we may not be accustomed to? Remember, Aquarius is all about rebelling against customs that no longer serve us. Number 2, can we allow and accept others and have the leniency to let them explore their own destinies without fist down judgments, ridicule, and punishing verdicts? Number 3, if we cannot bring ourselves to allow and accept others' choices, is it at least possible to live with peace of mind when it comes to their choices that may challenge our current way of thinking? Number 4, can we let ourselves act in a more compassionate way than we have in the past toward others due to the doctrines we've been trained into? And number 5, as the cycles shift in the environment around us and new forms begin to emerge from the destruction of the old, can we open our eyes, our minds, and our hearts to what will be required of us in our efforts to recycle, restructure, and rebuild stronger connections, stronger resilience, and stronger unification to bring in better and more equitable systems to replace those that have eluded, excluded, and even erased other people, places, things, and history from the reality we've become accustomed to. I know that's a lot to wrap our minds around. So that's why these next 19 days are a huge gift to our mental states and how we will allow them to be shaped as we go forward. Going just a touch further into the rising divine feminine and the declining divine masculine until they come into balance with what we've got going on in the above, it bears importance to bring your attention to the fact that Mars, masculine energy, and the god of war, who sits in the house of Mercury, who sits in the house of Gemini right now, excuse me, is in a perfect square off with Venus, feminine energy, and the goddess of love, who sits in the house of Virgo right now. As of yesterday, they were both sitting in the 22nd degree of the houses they occupy at the time of the nodes moving into the void degrees. Why is this important? Because both the house of Gemini and the house of Virgo are ruled by Mercury. Merc is the hermaphrodite of the zodiac, my friends. And this is why. In his ruling of Gemini, Merc is a masculine energetic. In Virgo, Merc is a feminine energetic. If you were unaware, Mercury, which is the name of the Roman mythological archetype for that planet, is Hermes in Greek mythology. You get it? Hermes, hermaphrodite. The word hermaphrodite means a perfect blending of masculine and feminine, and is often misused in human description here on Earth plane, just like masculine and feminine are. But this is a significant vloggy for another day, so I will get to that soon as I can. Meanwhile, if you're interested, I put a link to a bloggity I wrote on Substack last year about Mercury, or Hermes, role in masculine and feminine energetics in the description that you can check out if you'd like. The nodes of fate are giving us this 19-day grace period to learn about exactly who we are, to know thyself, an unadulterated and authentic truth. The nodes of fate move backwards through the zodiac, so on August 18th, they will move into the 29th degree, the most anaretic or critical degree of the house of Aquarius and the house of Leo. This is the most powerful degree of the astrological houses outside of the first degree. The 29th degree is known to bring the boiling point, if you will. So if you think the collective temperatures have already risen to their highest point, you ain't seen nothing yet, y'all. Again, I don't mean that as something to be feared or afraid of. This is such an exciting time to be alive. It's a time of many things closing down, yes, but any new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, my friends. And aren't you intrigued and eager to see what we can build together when we aren't confined by the systemic rules and regulations that have stagnated us and that we have been trained into? I know I am, and I truly hope that you are too, because to me, this is the ultimate state of freedom. In closing, it's wise for all of us to take these next 19 days to review, reevaluate, go into retrospection, and reassess where any weaknesses are in our four bodies, especially in the mental body, and then release them. Because the creation of reality begins with thoughts. Becoming malleable in your thought processes will bring a state of flow through the shifts, purges, and changes that are already underway. And we're already seeing this with the recent outbreak of earthquakes that our planet has been experiencing. Not only changing lives themselves, but changing the entire landscape of our planet. The only constant in all universes is change, and change requires flow or it gets stuck and stagnant. If I use water as an analogy here, our free will and our free thought is the form of our life rafts as we move through these currents shifting and changing. There are arm floaties, if you will, and our way to keep our heads above water while we move through these shifts, purges, and changes, so the tides carry each of us safely to new shores. It's also a great time to reevaluate whether or not we've been living the life we love, loving the gods we trust, and what we've been taking way too seriously. Because the water bearer's cauldron is full and the waters of renewal are starting to stream down from the heavens above, washing away all that no longer serves Gaia and her collective down here below. And truly, my friends, truly, it has never been a more important time to remember, remember, remember that you are stars in a human form, not the standards that other humans tried to make you into. Now go shine your brightest shine, my beloved Earthbound fam, and have yourselves a very joyful day. Blessed be.